Hola, everybody. It is a new year, a new me, and a new podcast. So, joining us today, it's me, Dan, and joining me today are.
Me.
And me.
And, Hall segment. Do we want to get into that business, Vince?
Sure.
That was probably the worst introduction of the whole
So we
show.
have
I'm so
The
sorry.
command you have over the audience, they were eating from the palm of your hand with that intro.
I
It's the
know.
first one of the year, and it was a strong one to say.
I can't be in the middle of a video anymore.
So
Showmanship is just impeccable.
we haven't had a Hall segment in a little bit, and that includes Christmas. And there are different sections to this. So first, some Christmas stuff. I don't think I've shown any of this. I got Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive by Jim Rugg. This collects a bunch of OGNs that he's done at Image with his character all together. It's about a homeless ninja girl on a skateboard who stops crime. It's pretty badass. Also for Christmas, I got Batman Dark Knight Detective Volume 1, which is the first of this kind of post-crisis chronological Batman collection run that I've picked up. And if anyone were to pick up any volume, just one, I think this is one of the best ones to go for, because this is the entire Mike Barr and Alan Davis run. Pretty standalone. And then, I didn't unwrap it yet, the Killer Be Killed Deluxe Edition from the team of Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It's a big, thick book. It's otherwise 4 trade paperbacks. And we'll talk about this creative team a little bit more in a bit. And then I got, and this may or may not be instructive for later podcasts, I got published by Tomorrow's. They publish like issue and whatever. American Comic Book Chronicles, the 1990s. Title does not show up very well on this camera. So this is a nonfiction book going into the entire 90s comic book era. So that'll be interesting. The 80s one is very out of print, which frustrates me. And then also in the 90s vein, I recently picked up for really it's a little bit thinner than it would be, but this is basically an epic collection, but it's a crossover between the 3 titles. So I have no idea how they'll handle it if and when they eventually get to this spot in the epic collections. This is circa, I can't quickly find it, but towards the end of those titles. And then also Hall segment, and we haven't acknowledged it much on the show, even though I think we have. This movie called Star Wars came out, and I really did not like it.
Nobody cares.
But here's the thing. You're going to think it's weird that I just said I didn't like the new Star Wars movie, because here's some crap that I've been picking up recently. All for cheap. It's not like I'm paying good money for this. So here we have Original Collection Volume 2. And here we have Star Wars The Rebellion Epic Collection Volume 2. And here we have Star Wars The Empire Epic Collection Volume 5. And here we have Star Wars The Empire Epic Collection Volume 3. And here we have Star Wars The Clone Wars Epic Collection Volume 2. And here we have Star Wars Rise of the Sith Epic Collection Volume 2. Now, I want to remind you, I don't like So that's my Hall segment.
You're never gonna read any of those Star Wars epics. You're not gonna read any of them.
Maybe we'll see.
You're
I
not
did
gonna
notice, and,
That,
and
that applies to a lot of his books. What are you talking about?
Dan is not doing a Hall segment, but I will say on behalf of him, go check out his channel Mandak, because he did a Hall video covering, I guess, pickups or however long. And I did notice while not falling asleep and listening to that video one late night, as one does, it's the kind of content Dan makes. I did notice that Dan has picked up a few Star Wars epics, and I don't know, maybe there's something there.
Yep. I also picked up the Rise of the Sith Epic Collection at my local Books A Million. So
Neither of you are gonna read those.
exactly, we're gonna make a bonfire with them.
Maybe there's or a bonfire. All right, that's the Hall.
Or both.
I stayed under 10 minutes, and let's move into the retro book.
All right. So the retro book for this week is Adventure Comics number 353, written by the legendary James Shooter. Artist is Kurt Swan. I'm sorry. I said it
Good
wrong.
God, we're off to a great year.
I know. Kick it off on a great year. Awful intro and awful retro book intro.
Legendary Superman artist, you get them wrong. I cannot wait for what 2020 brings us.
Yeah, I can't wait for all of our comments to hate on me. Anyway,
I'm happy that this is the last show on this channel. We're going out with a great bang on this one.
yeah. So, basically, the story involves the Legion of Superheroes, teaming up with the Fatal Five to bring down the Sun Eater. So pretty straightforward here. The Sun Eater basically is trying to come and destroy our sun, and the Legion of Superheroes is like, well, we can't really destroy this person ourselves, so we need to team up with all these criminals that are much more powerful than us to help take down the Sun Eater. So that's pretty much what this issue is about. A lot of it's spent, planning to see what they're gonna do. We get a few side plots going on here. We have a love triangle that develops with Mano. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. The Emerald Empress and Superboy. And then obviously we have the Fatal Five actually try and turn against the Legionnaires and plot to destroy them once they have saved the day and all that stuff. And basically the plan is to use Sunboy to kind of attract the Sun Eater, lure him into a final confrontation with all these characters. And they were going to use this bomb, I guess, called the Absorbatron bomb, which actually is a kind of cool name, I guess. And the way that they end up using it is Pharaoh Lad actually sacrifices himself and kills himself to save the day. And I think at the end they have like a little ceremony for him and mourn his death. After all that's done, the Fatal Five try to turn against the Legionnaires, and one of their characters in their ranks, I'm not sure who it is, turns against them, which opens up an opportunity for one of the Legionnaires to kind of I think it's kind of ambiguous as to what happens to them, but they end up disappearing or dying. I'm not sure, but I mean, this was a good issue, I guess. It just felt like I don't know, I'm not sure what year this was made, but it just seems very wordy. I mean, it makes sense because it's Jim Shooter. I mean, I like his storytelling sometimes, but he just gets so overly wordy, and it just gets bogged down. I feel like sometimes, at least for me, in my opinion. I'm not sure what you guys thought of this issue. Anything?
So guess how old Jim Shooter is when he writes this issue?
17.
Seriously?
He's 15.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean, obviously this is old, and it's DC old. Issue with Pharaoh Lad's death, one of the most famous moments in the Legion history, and the panel where he sacrifices his life, it's almost like so. It almost looks so dated that it's like cool in a weird way. I don't know. I don't explain it, but like that one panel is so iconic, but also like it kind of looks like trash. It's just like his silhouette holding it, and then, yeah. I mean, I'd say this is kind of dated, but it's a very iconic moment for the Legion, and I want to mention for those who care that it is available really quickly in the Legion of Superheroes Silver Omnibus Volume 2. And I don't really have much more to say.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on it. It's an issue of Adventure Comics. It was cool seeing the Fatal Five, but yeah, not great. It's pretty overly wordy.
Yeah, and this is like the Fatal Five.
These old.
This is the Fatal Five's second appearance, I believe. The first one may have been a bit of a cameo too. I'm not sure. Also, a bunch of Legionnaires that we didn't really see in this issue because they kind of split them up into little groups, especially with the Fatal Five. No Bouncing Boy, no Brainiac 5, no Chameleon Boy. And I think within this same, I'm not sure when it happens. It might be shortly after this. There's the Chameleon Boy sacrifice as well, but it ends up not being him. It ends up being his like shape-shifting pet who sacrifices itself. But this is the origin of Jim Shooter. In fact, he was drawing a bit. Sometimes he'd write and draw. All right, that's retro. I think it was a worthwhile historical detour. Now, we're going to go into Criminal number 11. I talked about the Brubaker-Phillips combo earlier in my haul segment. This is the actual heist that we've been building to in this story arc. And it's basically, they're basically robbing WrestleMania. Essentially, not specifically reference for.
They're not robbing WrestleMania.
Well, maybe not WrestleMania, but it's like a, what, you think it's like a lower tier house show or something?
It's a very, very, very like maybe a quarter at the most size.
Okay. I mean, you do have to keep in mind that when this is set, but they're robbing a wrestling show, and so it's a little cool to see Sean Phillips. And it's interesting some of the things that they explain here, that the heist, the plan of the heist, was actually sold to them. And there's this guy who basically like figures out heists and like a lot of the planning and gets like floor maps and stuff like that, and then sells them and just avoids the actual dangerous part. And also they have an inside man in the thing. But things aren't going as planned, but they still manage to grab the loot. And Teague Lawless evidence. It seems that something went wrong or someone screwed him over, but he really has no idea. And some of his compatriots kind of ticked off by that. And he gets to the safe house with Jane, his girlfriend, and then a guy knocks on the door and shoots Teague in the body with a shotgun. And I think it's the guy who's been looking for him in previous issues and confronted his son earlier. So that's one final part of this arc where we will, pick up with Teague shot with a shotgun. I thought this, as usual,
be correct.
I thought, as usual, this was perfection.
That was the.
The Sean Phillips art is great, coloring's great, everything's great. It's 10 out of 10.
I'm not gonna add anything. It's yeah.
Did you read the I forget what he calls at the end there, like the little notes he puts at the end of the issue. He's like, so before we start, that was an effed up ending, right? And I'm like, he has such a great personality, Ed Brubaker does. And yeah, this is just
I mean, I watched Parasite this week. Actually, I watched it yesterday. So like, on the scale of fucked up endings, not really.
yeah, I guess pretty mild, but
Very mild.
yeah, I love this series. What's it?
I mean, other than Vince is correct, that is the private eye that's been tracking Teague like this entire story. But yeah, it's all coming together.
Yep.
So into that, and that was a last week release, by the way. So we're making that one up for you, the fans. There's one other book that we did. Well, two others. One was more of a giant previews issue. But yeah, Daredevil number 16, Chip Zdarsky, and moving right from Batman to Daredevil is Jorge Fornes, who he did one previous issue. He did the shootout on the police headquarters, but now he's on this. Gang wars heating up in the Hell's Kitchen as Hammerhead makes kind of his first move against the Libras crime family, showing that, hey, if we're partners, I'm going to end up killing people. Well, Madame Libras does not want to end up having to kill anyone. She's very old school in her ways. Well, Hammerhead's like, nah, we gotta take it to the streets and show our power through force. The brother of the man Matt murdered as Daredevil in the beginning of this run is going to Foggy and looking like he's going to make a charge in a case and try to go after Matt, which is what that scene seemed like. I want to know more about what's going on there. And then Matt meets with the Kingpin to get information on what happened to Wilson Fisk, and he just laughs in his face when he realizes that he's still alive because he thought Daredevil was totally gone, and he's still sacrificing himself for what he calls Hell's Kitchen is just a 20 city blocks of scrap, which I liked. And then Matt wrestles with the ability of like, yeah, I'm going to be tortured to protecting this place, and it will be the death of me. And Matt and Elektra team up to go steal money from the Stromwims who put Fisk where he's at, and they have to fight a bunch of ninjas. So we get Jorge Fornes doing a bunch of ninja fights, which is awesome. And they're able to siphon, I think, $3 billion out of their accounts and give it to a bunch of local charities. And then what happens after that is Matt and Elektra have a falling out when Matt realizes that she kept $1 billion for herself because she's planning to start something big. And that is where we end this issue. Still really good. Chip Zdarsky, still great on Daredevil. And then Jorge Fornes, beautiful artist. Hoping he has a very breakout 2019 after 2018 was a pretty good year for him. But I'd like to see an even bigger 2019 from him.
Yeah, I would say that the art in this issue really stood out to me. It's definitely like an art style that I really enjoy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Mike, but the whole thing with like the Libris family and Hammerhead, I feel like Hammerhead's just gonna get put in his place though. I feel like he's just like he's doing all this talk, but like he always seems to get like the shit kicked out of him, and like I don't know if he's gonna be like a real threat. You know what I'm saying?
And has Hammerhead ever been a real threat?
No, he's just been
There
a
you go.
joke. So I don't know. I think I'd say misdirection, but no, I liked it. I like all the stuff with Elektra and Matt. I think that's something that I haven't really read a lot of, so it's kind of cool to see it. And
Having them pseudo back together is odds, and I knew eventually was not going to last. So this is kind of going on pace to where I thought it was going to go, but still very good.
yeah, it's handled well.
I just wish Daredevil would be back in his actual costume because he's running around in that just black suit, which it's getting a little annoying. He's only been in the costume for like 3 issues of this run now.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that too. I wonder if they're doing that to capitalize off of like the popularity from like I don't know something else.
Something else? You mean the Netflix show that doesn't exist anymore?
Exactly. The first
Has been
season.
on the air for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
the mythic stupidity that the black skin tight sweatsuit has now had over the one of the most clean design in comics. I'll never understand why that black suit keeps getting used. It's literally a pair of sweatpants. That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Yep. That was good though. 10 out of 10. All right, Detective Comics 1018. And for some reason there is a comma now in the number, so we'll go with
Yeah,
that.
that's annoying. That.
That threw me off. All right, so Peter Tomasi, this is the beginning of a new arc. I guess I missed the ending of the last arc, which is fine. There you go. Thank you. So we open up to like a
Why is Dan only talking about 3 books this week? Because he didn't read anything to catch up.
what, me? I'm sorry. Anyway, we open up to a Viking like character that is like has basically thrown like an axe through someone's head, and we don't really get a lot of context of it. So then we pan to Batman returning from beating up a like regular street crook, I guess, and we get a cool moment where he comes back, rushes back to the Batcave and plays with his 2 dogs, and plays catch with them, and we get a reference, I guess, to Alfred's death from the main Batman series. I'm assuming because Alfred's not there, and he says something about like "damn Alfred" or something like that. Um, but yeah, so and then he kind of goes on this mission trying to find out like there's something that's going on in the Gotham Botanical Gardens, I believe, and there's like a huge Christmas tree in there, and he goes in there and finds that there's people literally like hanging from the tree, like freaking dead, like bleeding out and dead, and he's like, okay, what the hell's going on here? And he sees like a little etching around like the circumference of like the tree, and he sees that it's like a Norse like symbol of like a woman or something. I forget what it is. So he kind of uses that as like a clue towards who's behind these killings of these people, especially on a Christmas tree, no less. And then we pan to I guess a few days, or I guess that night maybe, where he goes to the Wayne Christmas tree lighting, kind of like Rockefeller Center, but in Gotham, which I think is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if that was ever referenced in a previous Batman story, but yeah, so he's like talking about the Christmas tree and everything when he's attacked in the middle of the ceremony by this guy named Jolablot. I don't know. I probably butchered that name. Jolablot, I'm not sure who it is, but it's that Viking character that we were introduced to in the beginning of the issue. So I'm assuming Vince and Mike probably know who this person is, but
Brand new person. It is.
what?
It's a brand new person.
Okay, well there you go. So we'll see what this is all about. But yeah, and it has a little bit of a Christmas under theme going on, obviously. But I thought it was a pretty good issue. Good setup for what's to come, and a little bit of, um, I guess, like a happier, casual side to Batman versus just him in the suit all the time. So yeah, what'd you guys think?
I thought this issue was strictly fine, like fine to the point like I don't care about this arc and I'm already writing it off as a placeholder because something was clearly moved around because why are we doing the Christmas story in January?
Yeah,
Oh, I don't care. Like I don't I'm not in the mood for this. This is something else. I don't care. Also, Gordon is still stupidly corrupted by the Batman Who Laughs, so he keeps going to Bullock because I guess Bullock's in charge of the GCPD now. This is fine, but I don't care about any of this.
I'm completely the opposite. I really enjoyed this. I was surprised by the art. This guy Scott Godlewski, never heard of him in my life. I thought it looked pretty nice. Um, I thought this issue was emblematic of kind of what I've enjoyed about Tomasi's run overall. where, I mean, just on the base level, like Batman has a lot of blue in his costume in this issue, which I don't. Maybe it's just entirely the like tone of the coloring, but I don't even think he's wearing the same costume in like Tom King's run. Is he? I don't know.
He is, because they
Um,
brought back the Jim Lee suit. That's
yeah,
the suit.
the blue, especially on his cowl and his cape, stood out a lot to me in this issue. I like the snow on the pages. Snow and rain in comics, it's very easy to make it look really cool if you know what you're doing. And then I thought it's just really fun. Like there's the few panels in a row where Bruce basically shushes some cops, like puts his finger up to his mouth and is like shh. And then there's like 3 panels where he like calls up the Batmobile and then dives into it and then goes off. And it's like very kinetic. There's the pacing on the storytelling between the panels, and there's just huge sound effects on each panel of the Batmobile's engine revving. And then he plays catch with Ace and Titus real quick, which also Ace and Titus in the same issue. I don't think that's been shown in Rebirth at all.
No, that's the first time we've seen that.
Yeah. And that's like just a really cool scene. Like when are you going to get Batman playing catch with his dogs? And then and then on the end of the page, it turns into a very emotional scene where he thinks about Alfred again. And you see a lot of that also, like where he like falls asleep in the Batcave in his chair, and Ace or Titus have to wake him up. And then I loved how there was a reference. One of the streets is named after Doug Monk. And then there's a joke about Hawkman, which was also, it wasn't like nagging on Hawkman, but it was like a funny, quick Hawkman joke. I mean, I'm not going to say this is like my favorite arc or anything, but I enjoyed the issue. I was really surprised by the art, considering I'd never heard of this person. And I think certain parts of this issue really stood out as why I'm enjoying this Tomasi run so much. Which, Mike, you missed it. I don't know how much you skimmed through it or watched it or anything, but I'll quickly note that Dan actually included this book in his top 5 for the year, which was a slight surprise to me.
I didn't watch any of that show because my laptop was rebooting everything. So, no, I didn't watch it.
But this is definitely a series we all like.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a sleepwalking story. Like it just feels like it's on autopilot to me.
I'll move us into Dial H. This is issue number 10 of 12. So we ended last issue with like, hey, the multiverse is an H dial. And turns out Mr. Thunderbolt wants to dial the multiverse, which is a ridiculous thought. And then they kind of travel through the multiverse a little bit. We see the New 52 version of Earth 2, which I'm not certain what's supposed to be the situation there. And then we see Batman Beyond and some other stuff, and then they end up on the totally screwed up Earth 32, where basically like it's like think of 20 superheroes or villains in the DC universe, but then merge all of them so there's only 10 superheroes and 10 supervillains. That's what Earth 32 is. So we have all these like amalgamized inter-DC mashups, and some of them are kind of fun. And there's a version of Lolo Kick You here, which is fused with Lobo. And so Summer connects with her. And then the version of Miguel on this Earth is a combination of him and Danny the Street. So it's Miguel the Street. And there's some fun commentary, some fun jokes there, because Miguel the Street doesn't talk, uses signage and newspaper stands and stuff like that to make visual jokes and communicate with Miguel. And then Miguel touches the dial like a dummy, and it turns out that Thunderbolt is Robbie Reed, which we already really knew. I mean, it was revealed to us that they were split off from the same individual, but now it's like somehow more than that. And also there's an Al Jaffe Mad Magazine fold-in page, which does not really work on digital. but it's just really cool. And then, but essentially, Mr. Thunderbolt turns Miguel to the dark side, essentially, and he goes along with Mr. Thunderbolt, and he uses the Y dial, which like turns you into a hero, but also splits you or something. And so he becomes 4 versions of Super Miguel, and so it's the reign of the Super Miguels, and we have like a fake like reign of the Supermen cover as the final page. It's just fucking brilliant. I love every page of this comic book.
Give this man an Eisner, please.
Yeah,
That's all I have to say about the book. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's not even the style. Like, and I'm sure on many levels, Sam Humphries is involved in these decisions. But like the fold-in aspect,
Well,
first of all,
like an old Mad magazine too.
Yeah. But also like as soon as I saw that, also like after a second, I thought, oh, like a lot of collectors are gonna be like, I ain't folding my comic book.
I thought about that too. I was like, the fact that they went with that decision though is really, really cool. Yeah. I love it.
This is one of those. It's like the old Marvel value stance. This is one of those comic books where you got to buy 2 copies because one of them you got to fold to understand the story, and then the other you got to keep in good condition. So support this book.
I mean, I'm going to be sad when it's done. We only got 2 more issues left. I really hope it sticks around. I don't know. Like I said, wasn't on that year-end show, but Sam Humphries, and Joko Nones. I want to see more from this team. They're brilliant together.
Yeah, this was my number 2 behind Criminal, I believe.
Yeah, it would definitely be in my top 3. Dr. Doom, but this is Dan.
Oh, great. All right, Dr. Doom, written by Chris Cantwell. Artist is Salvador LaRocca. So we open up to this hobo, I guess, living in New York. His name is Dmitry Fortunov, and apparently he is the rightful heir to the Latverian throne. So that's kind of like the prelude to this whole story we got going on here. So Doom is pretty much hunting down the Taskmaster, who sniped him in the head last issue, or the issue before that, I believe. And he's having an inner dialogue with somebody. We don't really know. At least I don't think it's revealed to us until the end of the issue who it is. It turns out it's MODOK. I think that's who is having this dialogue with him throughout this whole time he's going through this area finding the Taskmaster. And once he finds the Taskmaster, he pretty much beats the shit out of him and tells him, like tries to get information from him as to who ordered the hit on him and all that stuff. And during this whole story as well, we also get more information and more backstory and more, I guess, progress on the whole issue between, I think it's Samkaria. Is that the name of the other country? The Silver Sable country? I think that's what it is. We have a growing issue between that country and Latveria, and basically Silver Sable and this other chick. I think her name is Zora or whatever her name is, Victorious. I'm not sure. They decided they're going to team up and try to take down Doom because they believe that if they do that will pretty much resolve the issues they have, because they believe that at the center of all this stuff is Dr. Doom, and they think with him out of the picture that they can hopefully try to resolve the issues they've had as countries. And so, like I said, Dr. Doom eventually gets up there, and finds out that MODOK has been behind this whole assassination attempt on him, and he's actually working for somebody who's trying to get Dimitri from the beginning of the issue into Latveria as the ruler of Latveria. So it's kind of like them trying to oust Doctor Doom out of his own country and put this guy that apparently is like a genetic or like an ancestral heir to Latveria back into power in the country, because they want Doom out of the picture. So there's a lot of political things going on here. I mean, I can kind of like get behind a little bit where it's going. I feel like the first few issues is a little tough to kind of like come to grips with some of it and like understand it and like, I guess get behind it. But I feel like this is starting to get like a little bit more interesting because you have people that are trying to get rid of Doom, and as we all know, Doom is a very um, complex character, and I can't imagine what he's going to do to these people once he finds out that they've been trying to get him out of Latveria. So I'm not sure what you guys thought. I think this series is getting better. I don't know. I kind of like this issue.
I think it's getting worse.
Really?
Yeah, this is bad. Like I don't care what's going on. It's so messy and not well. Like it's so messy in the plot and like jigsawed to the point where it's like snapshotting itself. I like the stuff with Kang. None of that's here. I don't care about MODOK. You got Doom running around in a hoodie and an old mask the whole time.
Yeah, that's kind of stupid. And a gun.
Yeah, it's really messy and stupid to me. This is probably my last issue. Like every issue got a little bit worse, and like it felt like they ran out of ideas when like, oh, we got to send him to hell again. Oh crap, we already did the Triumph and Torment thing. Oh, what do we do? We're throwing MODOK. And I was like, also, I think Salvador Larroca's art looks really messy at times in this book too. Like some stuff looks good, and then there's other stuff where I'm like, I don't know about that, which is kind of what Vince and I's takeaway on that X-Men run was before this. But yeah, nothing is holding me here to really keep an interest in this book because I just feel I can already feel like nothing that happens in this is going to matter. Also, we just brought Doom back to being a bad guy and taking over Latveria again, and we just took him off the throne. Not even a year to the Fantastic Four being back. What do you want to do? You want to? This is just like a stall of, well, we don't have anything to do. Give Doom a book. It's not entertaining to me.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Two different opinions.
Yeah, that's fine. Doctor Strange, Surgeon Supreme, #1, Mark Waid and Kev Walker. And if you remember, Kev Walker is who did those 2 issues of Detective Comics with Tomasi with the Spectre. If I have that right, I'm pretty sure I am. But Doctor Strange now has healed hands, which happened at the end of Mark Waid's first run. With like Galactus is involved and stuff in that, which we'll talk about Galactus later on in the show. But his hands are now repaired so he can be a surgeon again. So he's splitting his time between his magic duties as the defender of the realm and his new surgeon duties as a special consultant surgeon at a New York City clinic. There's great shots talking about how the chaos of the magic he deals with is kind of comparative chaos to the emergency room in a New York City clinic, which I thought was pretty neat. But he's currently being used as to only help patients with like the highest priority cases because he's the best brain surgeon. But he's having trouble like learning how to manage his time at both places. Like he's trying to figure out how do I get to both places easily at once. But as he's all going through that, building blocks start exploding in New York City. So Strange like quickly throws his cape and suit back on and heads out there to figure out what's going on. And it's the Wrecker who's blowing up city blocks with a new magically enhanced crowbar, and he gets the upper hand on Strange, and he starts breaking Strange's legs with the crowbar and just like viciously beating him with it. I thought Kev Walker's art looked really good in places and a little bit weird in some. There's something off about his face on Strange, where it's like he doesn't. This makes sense. It's in between making him look young but also like old. He needs to decide what kind of face he wants to go with on Strange. It's very odd to look at times. But I think I like the premise of this. Like, I want to see where it goes. I thought when I initially heard it, Doctor Strange with repaired hands, what's the fun in that? Okay, we're taking a guy like the Wrecker I like and throwing another twist on him. And now that Strange's legs are pretty crippled and broken, we'll see what happens here. But yeah, I thought as far as the first issue goes, it was all right. Wasn't great, but like enough to pull me in for at least a second one. And this was also a last week's release to catch up on.
Yeah, I missed reading this issue this week, even though it was from last week, but I'm intrigued by it. It's similar to Immortal Hulk, where like I just didn't jump on Wade's Doctor Strange, and I missed the whole thing since. but I've heard mostly good things, and I actually did try out the final 1 or 2 issues of the previous volume. Basically, the issue where he basically is in that situation and has to and gets his hands back to save this kid from like a car crash. And I really like that issue. So I was kind of intrigued by this. I'll have to check it out because the way I kind of understood it is that he wasn't going to have as much magic, and this was going to be more surgery. But I guess, I mean, obviously that wasn't going to be much of a Doctor Strange book.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same as like Mark Waid has literally done this like 3 times in his past 3 Marvel runs, where they've relaunched the series with a different adjective. Well, on one other instance, a different adjective for no real reason. It went from Indestructible Hulk to Hulk, and then Daredevil just went from Daredevil to Daredevil, but with a status quo shift. So I guess that's just what they do. And Wade's still a dependable guy on most books, so might as well keep him around.
Yeah.
And I believe the Spectre arc was Kyle Haas.
That's right. Okay. All right.
Walker with the weird arc with like the light-based knight chick from Arkham.
That's right. It was the Arkham Knight stuff.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I know he did work on Detective Comics.
Yeah. So next is Hawkeye Freefall #1 by Matt Rosenberg and Otto Schmidt, which is kind of interesting because Otto Schmidt just came off of a run on Green Arrow, and I feel like I want to say Andrea Sorrentino did some Hawkeye as well after he did his Green Arrow run, or vice versa. Or I don't think that's right. But we open here with Clint busting up a arms deal that the Hood is doing. But the Hood gets away with a slap on the wrist thanks to the mayor, who I guess is the Kingpin, as referenced in Daredevil, which the 2 of you talked about earlier. And then Hawkeye has sex with his new girlfriend, Night Nurse. And I saw some Mockingbird and Hawkeye fans complaining on social media that there's a Mockingbird joke here really quickly. It doesn't bother me a ton. I mean, they haven't like they ruined that long ago. Like that's early '90s. They ruined that. And they haven't been properly back together since. So it's whatever, and it's not like they're not shit talking Mockingbird in this issue. Night Nurse is just making a joke about Bobby Morse being his ex, and then there's also kind of a joke about the Hulk because she's wearing like a Hulk shirt, and he's like, I don't like that shirt, which makes me think of recent Hawkeye and Hulk stuff. But I like seeing Night Nurse used in some capacity in some book in the Marvel Universe. She is an interesting kind of side character. And there's a Ronin running around New York up to some shit. And Winter Soldier and Falcon track down Clint and question him because obviously he is the person most associated with the Ronin costume, even though he points out to them, hey, there are like 3 other people who have worn it, but they're like, no, it can't be any of those. So that's our main mystery here as we move forward. And because they find Ronin and they just all get trashed. I liked this. I thought the art was good from Otto Schmidt. It's a little different from what I would expect from his like based on his Green Arrow work and based on what he posts online. I like Clint's. He's still a little slobby. He's still a little sloppy. He's still comedic, but he still, to me, comes off as an actual superhero in this issue, or at least the street level superhero version of Hawkeye, as opposed to among the Avengers when he's slightly different. I think this doesn't fall into the traps of people trying to copycat Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, in my opinion. And also, I think it is nice and done subtly how it sort of ties to other stuff Rosenberg has done. I think the Hood has shown up in his Punisher run once or twice. He wrote like the Kingpin miniseries, which I guess you could technically argue connects. And then the main thing is that Clint and Hawkeye and Bucky, Hawkeye and Winter Soldier, were in his Tales of Suspense book miniseries after Secret Empire. I enjoyed this. What do you guys think?
I'm astounded that you're saying that this is like not an imitation of Fraction's Hawkeye. This is like that dialed up to 11 to me. It comes off almost to the point of parody, to the point where I don't recognize that I'm reading the same character. It feels like I don't know when Hawkeye became Booster Gold. That's what it feels like.
I can see that kind of parallel, like that kind of characterization, but I don't think Fraction made Hawkeye Booster Gold.
No, he didn't. It was the people that tried to imitate that did it.
Sure, maybe. But to me,
every third word out of his mouth in this is some stupid joke.
It's different from Fraction, and I guess
different from Fraction because it's a very bad imitation of Fraction.
I don't really agree on that, but it's not my.
How is it not?
It's not my ideal characterization, but this is just the reality in this post Fraction, and I think this is better than what we've gotten recently.
I mean, regardless of who it's like trying to imitate, I still thought it was decent. The plot was good, and the setup is pretty cool.
It was fine. I hate the Hood, so that minus points there because I hate the Hood. 5 years of Bendis trying to make him interesting in Avengers, and that didn't work.
Yeah, not a big fan of the Hood either, but I'm not sure that he'll actually be
great. I'll say that Otto Smith's art was great. I like the idea of someone going around in a Ronin suit, but yeah, I don't know if I'm sticking with this. Like comparing this to, for example, No Road Home, where Hawkeye was perfect in it. I'll take more No Road Home because this felt like a parody to the point where it was not even the same character.
Well, we'll see. I could see myself possibly jumping off an issue or two later if I tire from if he doesn't kind of get a little more, a little wider when the characterization and stuff. But I'm definitely going to keep following it. I also don't like the concept of Ronin in any sense. But at least it's not Clint.
I like that he mentioned that three people have worn that costume. That was a good pay attention to continuity. But yeah, not a fan of this. It gets like maybe one more for me.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is I don't think this is going to last that long anyway. So
this is going to be like 6 issues.
I don't think you're going to be missing out on time.
I don't feel like I missed out. And if I wouldn't have read it, I wouldn't have missed anything.
All right. So incoming, this is last week's humongo special issue, like 80 pages or whatever. It's sort of kind of a sequel to Marvel Comics 1000 and 1001 by way of the Masked Raider, who shows up in like the first few pages to discover this dead body and then disappears and is not in the rest of the book at all. And this mystery, this body, it involved eventually, like solving the mystery involves Jessica Jones, Captain Marvel, Blue Marvel, Jimmy Woo, Night Thrasher, and Reed Richards. I think that's all of them. And then there are interludes featuring, which are mostly unrelated, even though some of them connect. Daredevil, the Avengers, Agents of Atlas, Nova, Hulk, Iron Man, the asterisk on Iron Man, Ghost Rider, Venom, Spider-Man, sort of asterisk, is more Miles Morales, even though Peter's there. Mr. Sinister, representing the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four. And I don't want to go page by page because it's a waste of time. Basically, there's a through line, just like Marvel Comics 1000, 1001, and then you're just checking in on essentially like 6 or 7 like a half a dozen ongoing runs through Marvel, and so I'm very interested to see how these work, because we know that at least in some of these books that the pages from here, Marvel is actually going to, which they don't. They usually don't do this. You usually have to get you'd have to get the incoming book. But like, for example, the Ghost Rider pages, they're pulling and putting in the Ghost Rider collections. So it'll be interesting to see how those work within their actual series and out of the context of this whole thing. So I'm not going to go page by page. There's just a few comments that I want to make, and then you guys can chime in. In fact, some of these are more questions. So first of all, as the people reading Daredevil, what is going on with Daredevil's ugly fucking tracksuit?
I talked about it.
I guess you did, but
I already talked about it.
I don't read that book, so I didn't know this was his actual status quo. And
He's still wearing it for
Daredevil anymore, so he has to reinvent himself, and he's running around in a tracksuit.
And I cringed when he said something like, "He's not from my Daredevil days."
Yeah.
My next comment: the art on the Avengers pages allegedly by Andrea Sorrentino, it's fucking awful, right?
I don't even remember the Avengers pages. I read this last week when it came out.
Yeah, I think the Avengers pages are super rough.
I mean, I think this whole book is rough.
Well, I actually like parts of it. In fact, the very beginning, I'd say 80-20. The very beginning.
No, I said not art-wise.
Oh. Well, I'll just continue what I was saying. I think the very beginning, where you have Jessica Jones transition into Captain Marvel, I think the flow between those two worked perfectly. I mean, it makes sense because they're both Kelly Thompson, and the characters then Jessica Jones appears in the Captain Marvel segment, and the characters have a past relationship with each other. I thought that pacing was good, but then some of the other stories, it's like pan the camera all the way across the country. I don't really. All right, so there's a New Warriors call where Night Thrasher calls up Nova, and it's cool as a New Warriors fan, which I say half the troll, but also it's cool because this moment is reminiscent of like the Civil War Annihilation parallel, back when everyone called up Nova and was like, "Hey, we need your help," and Nova's like, "Hey, I'm saving the entire universe," and he's doing that here again. And the art on the Nova pages, which I think is R.B. Silva from House of X, was amazing. And Herbie joins the Robot Revolution, so possibly look out for Herbie in Iron Man 2020, which I guess they're both written by Dan Slott, so that's an easy transition. I talked about how it's totally obvious in Hawkeye that Clint and Night Nurse have sex. It is also totally obvious that Hulkling and Wiccan have sex in this issue. They kind of say goodbye to each other, and I'll get back to that. And then otherwise through here, you get teases for Outlawed, which is like the next Champions thing. You get I have no interest in that. You get whatever the long brewing Venom stuff from Donny Cates. I don't think that's immediately around the corner, because whenever they do get to that, I imagine it will be on the same level as Absolute Carnage. You get sort of Iron Man 2020 teases throughout, and the big April event ties into the main thread, I think. So the body from the beginning turns out to be the Kree Belle Dan, who goes back, and it is referenced here, but there's no footnote. Belle Dan's first appearance is X-Men 137, the end of the Dark Phoenix saga. And then he appears again in Fantastic Four Annual number 18 from John Byrne's run. And a Skrull character who he was at odds with back in that annual, the kind of detective team track him down and think that he's the killer. But he's like, no, we were working together. And it's like, I think it's kind of implied like they had like a relationship. I wasn't clear on that. I may have been reading too into it. and they talk about an asset and blah blah blah, but then an apple seed grows into a tree and explodes his body, and I don't really know how that connects. I think that's a separate mystery, but it turns out that Hulkling is now king of the universe, and he's uniting the Kree and the Skrulls, and they're going to wage war on Earth. I liked bits and pieces. I'm actually sort of down for. I know off air Mike said he's not really interested. I'm sort of down for Empire.
I'm not remotely interested because I'm so sick of taking good guy characters and making them evil. It's all they've done since 2006.
Well,
and they're doing it again.
Yes, that's what they're doing, but also from the grander perspective and from Hogan's perspective, I don't think it's black and white like that.
But for the reader, once again, it's this guy has ties to this, so and the whole point of Children's Crusade, it was that he was when the Avengers showed up, stopped him from going there to do this. So this now makes Children's Crusade pointless. So now he's going to be a bad guy, and he's going to be a despot ruler for 5 years. I don't care.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure, especially since like the Nova pages here, I think are completely after this little Annihilation Scourge mini reunion event. So I don't know where Nova goes from here. I'm guessing that may connect back to Empire. I'm not sure. Again, bits and pieces I liked. I think this was more effective than some of the other kind of giant annual preview books that Marvel has done in the past 2 or 3 years.
I think they're all kind of a waste of time. That's kind of what I've learned.
Well, the thing with this is, and it's really only like 2 or 3 of them, but you can pull pieces of this and insert it within the ongoing series. Whereas like Marvel Legacy, like I didn't give a shit about that. Like the Avengers DC and crap. But that's incoming.
Dan, did you read Incoming? Well,
No.
saved you 10 minutes.
I don't think. Well, there's like 4 pages that you should read for Iron Man 2020.
Do I have to do that?
Dan actually going to read Iron Man 2020.
There's the Iron Man segment, and actually it might be 8 pages because you should probably read the Fantastic Four segment as well for Herbie, which I think precedes the Iron Man segment or vice versa.
You know, I'm going to read in anticipation of Iron Man 2020, Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 20, because that is the first appearance of Iron Man 2020, and that's what I'm going to read, and that's it.
And I think X-Men readers definitely need to read pages of Incoming.
Yeah, that felt that the X-Men stuff felt like, oh wow, this seems pretty big. But yeah.
Ghost Rider readers need to read a few pages. And what was the other one? Oh, and then I guess Hulk. I mean, there's a Ewing
page. I don't remember it.
It's Samson having psychotherapy.
Oh yeah, those pages were good.
I got the issues out of words. Next is Lois Lane.
Lois Lane, Greg Rucka, Mike Perkins. So the question stops a hitman from shooting Lois when a dude's spying on her with Superman. And then Superman stops to help the question. Renee Montoya is like questioning why Lois is being untruthful with her. It's also like being written is that Renee is viewing this as Lois cheating on Clark. I'm guessing she doesn't know that Clark Kent is Superman, but like when you become a superhero in the DC universe, I kind of always viewed that like everyone knows each other. So like, shouldn't you know that Clark Kent is Superman? Also, he just revealed his identity to the world, so you should also know that. But this happens before that. But DC continuity means nothing anymore with Bendis is writing it, so that's the problem. But the question, which by the way, if there's any question, Renee Montoya in this book brings Lois a bunch of investigation recordings that she needs from interrogations. And they sit there and listen to them, and Lois can't use any of them because they wouldn't be allowed unadmissible in court. So it was Lois just spent 3 hours listening to all these for nothing. And they also, when they got back to Lois's apartment, they see that it's been cleaned up by a new maid, which is a huge tip off that someone is after them, because Lois has been paying only the one person to come into that room and not clean it up specifically, but they just shrug it off, which is really odd. And then we see that the room has been bugged by this woman who takes off her mask, and it's a skull face. So I don't know if this is a daughter of DEO director Bones or something, because this is after Leviathan strikes or whatever the hell that stupid event was. So is she out for revenge? But also she's wired it to explode, and we see the apartment explode with Lois and Renee inside. I'm slowly losing interest in every book in the Superman line because nothing makes sense or really seems to matter anymore. I like Jimmy Olsen, but also the larger implications of that book are that it's tied to the Leviathan and all that. Same thing with this. Also, Mike Perkins' art looks really great in some places and really bad in others. It's a shame that Greg Rucka has to be shoehorned into writing for this Bendis run universe-wide launch of Superman, because he'd be really able to excel on this book if he didn't have to confine it to those stretches. It'd be a lot more interesting, I feel. Oh yeah, no comments on that. All right.
Absolutely nothing to say.
I was gonna say no one else reads that book. Punisher Soviet #3, Garth Ennis, Jason Burrows. So this is the whole flashback issue to what happened to Valerie, who's the guy working with the Punisher. And he gives his tragic tale of being in the Russian-Afghan war to Frank, showing why he wants to go after this general. And their stories are kind of similar. If you read this and read Born, it's kind of similar to their experiences in their respective wars, but Valerie had to see his friends and comrades skinned alive in front of him as he's just literally stuck by a knife through his palms onto a tree. So pretty hardcore stuff in this. It's Garth Ennis doing the horrors of war very, very well. And then that's the whole issue, is the backstory, and then we see him flash in the future when after the war, and he sees the guy he wants to kill on television, and it's kind of implied that this guy has been kind of construing it to keep him from not talking to anyone. So still really, really good stuff from Garth Ennis, master of the Punisher and master of these types of stories. And Jason Burrows' art, I think it feels like it's getting better every issue. Really just haunting sequences throughout this book.
Yeah, this is fucking grisly. I mean, there's the scene early on where the soldiers have their limbs chopped off and they're on the side of the road. But then when you have 4 dudes skinned alive and screaming at his feet, I'm really surprised that Marvel. I mean, I know it's Max, and I know that there've been some crazy stuff in Max, most from Ennis.
I was gonna say there's been worse things in Max than this.
Yeah, but it's still a little surprising. Yeah.
I mean, when I think of Max, things that were more brutal, the Nick Fury series, the very first one, that's a lot worse. The one where he's in Cuba, where he gets his eye stabbed through, that was a lot worse.
Here's a weird off-topic question, and I'm probably just blanking on something. Is there anything good from Marvel Max that is either A, not written by Ennis, and B, not Alias?
So not written by Ennis, not Alias.
Yeah.
Probably not. It's definitely not Luke Cage Max.
I mean, I can't even name that much more Max. I mean, they did some of the horror characters.
There's that Deadpool book. Not many other characters have had Max series other than them. The Max series, right?
I thought
What?
I thought X-23 had like something before her like main series that was a Max title. Is that?
I don't think Nyx was Max, and if it was, Nyx is
It
terrible.
wasn't. It
Oh.
wasn't. It was a mature reader's book.
Oh, okay.
But I guess Deadpool Max is all right. But like Cage Max and like some of the horror books they did Max were pretty bad. I think the Pete Wisdom book was Marvel Max, which
Yeah,
kind
Pete
of sort
Wisdom
of
Max.
yeah, it's kind of sort of
God.
equal to Captain Britain and MI13.
U.S. War Machine is Max, right?
We already talked about that last week.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Punisher Soviet again. I kind of see it similarly to Criminal, where it's just like a creator who's just perfected this point in their career, and in this kind of genre.
I feel like, it's when Ines is on the Punisher, it's like, all right, this is going to be really damn good. Like, regardless, like it's going to stand above like at least half the books Marvel's publishing.
And it's not even just Punisher. Like, effectively, this whole series so far is also a war story, which is obviously another.
Yeah, and it does really, really well.
All right.
The big release of the week, Thor #1, Donny Cates and Nick Klein. So, Vince, can I proudly proclaim that Thor is back?
Yeah. Yes.
Under a new direction, under Donny Cates and Nick Klein. The 7-year-long run of Jason Aaron is over. But coping with his new role now as King of Asgard after the War of the Realms, Thor is feeling the weight of Mjolnir getting heavier as king, and he's also adjusting to having the powers of the Allfather. I liked those scenes. There's a great scene with Loki. Also, like the whole issue is him throwing Mjolnir across all 9 realms to just take out a monster that the Avengers are fighting, and he didn't even like have to leave Asgard, which is pretty sweet. But kind of adjusting to this new role, but all of a sudden Galactus just crash lands into Asgard, destroying the newly regrown world tree, which Thor has made like his throne on Asgard because that's what gave him his powers back and whatnot. But it's revealed that Galactus is dying, and the force that gave him his powers from like his realm and dimension is coming for Earth's now. So like Thor gathers up like all of the other former heralds of Galactus, and because this is Donny Cates, we also see Silver Surfer, and Silver Surfer is black from Silver Surfer Black. So it all adds up, and so they all kind of agree, like, all right, let's lead this charge on this incoming force, and I'll stand by your side. And Surfer's ready to become the Herald once again, but not so fast. Now it's going to be Thor as Galactus grants him the power, which immediately gives Thor his arm back and his eye. He's got super, super long hair now, but he's got a new costume I kind of dig, though. It's reminiscent of the Olivier Coipel version, but there's like Nordic runes now on his chest, which I thought was a kind of a neat idea. But as far as first issues go, I'm totally down. It seems that Donny Cates is kind of like almost like pseudo Hickmaning all of his work, where it's all kind of tied together somehow through different things. So I'm almost kind of disappointed because I know his Guardians run was only 12 issues. I know we're not going to get a 7-year-long run on Thor for Donny Cates, especially with the way the story is lined up here. It feels like this might just be like 12 or 20 and then done. But I did read Donny Cates's right up in the back of the issue talking about how Thor is one of his favorite characters, and I felt like that came from genuinely from the heart. And I do want to talk about Donny Cates just for a second, where I think he's really shown that that in the past year or so that he is a master of taking a very large scale concept and making it interesting and feel fresh and fun and exciting. He's very much a fan of comics in the medium itself, and he talks about this in write up, where it's like some of the magic is lost when you're one of those people behind the curtain getting to write it. But he consistently is able to deliver on like the big epic moment, which even as like you become more of a reader and you get more jaded over time, as I think things go, he's one of those people that, and it's like a very few selective few that kind of make you kind of turn the page and kind of have that awe of excitement again every now and then. I think he does that really, really well, and it's exciting to see him keep carrying that over here in Thor. And then Nick Klein is like, I don't have we seen a better issue 1 than this? Like, this was amazing. Like, absolutely incredible art throughout. It's between this and X-Men #4 for my pick of the week, and I think I'm going to probably choose this over X-Men just because Nick Klein's art is so damn clean and very, very good. But excited to hear what you guys have on this. I feel like we might have differing opinions, but I'm very excited for the Thor, who is now the Herald of Galactus, imbued with the power of the Allfather and Galactus's power cosmic. I like that we're now putting Thor truly back on the map of feeling like this awesomely powerful character again.
Yeah, I enjoyed this issue pretty much until I nitpick on the final page. I think Nick Klein's art with Matt Wilson's colors is just amazing. I think Donny Cates gets the writing pretty well. We haven't seen, in the grand scheme of things, we haven't seen a ton of dialogue from Thor yet. So that's always the thing for me, especially in this modern era, where I have to watch out on how writers write Thor. That was one of my sticking points with Jason Aaron. I didn't really like how he tried to be a little cutesy and comedic with Thor and using things like Bore Damned and crap like that. Loki was used well here, and I think like once Silver Surfer explains things and once Galactus shows up and there's like the scene where Thor's leading all the heralds and his army marching and everything, like it really gets to an epic scale. And it was cool to see Silver Surfer black in another book because he's colored in a very cool way, because it's a very different texture and style from Silver Surfer black.
He's got a very nice, beautiful, like silver glow to him, which is really cool. Kind of how he's black, but still like the silver is there.
I mean, I give the art a 5 out of 5. I give the premise, as far as what we see so far in the series, basically everything I'm 100% down for. But I don't like Thor's hair, and especially as we've seen it kind of teased on this cover and future covers. We'll see. But that's a nitpick. I'm
What
down
about
for
it as a weapon?
Dan, did you try out Thor?
I didn't, and after hearing what you guys had to say about it, I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't get a chance to read it. But definitely want.
You didn't read it?
I know. I didn't get a chance to, but I'm definitely gonna see if I can try to read it before the next issue comes out.
Yeah, you should try and catch up and jump on with us for the second issue or something.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I'll definitely read the second one. So, yeah, that sounds cool though. I'm excited.
All right, X-Men corner. As always, X-Men #4. This is basically like the leadership crew. We have Magneto, Charles, Apocalypse, and then Cyclops and relatively kind of obscure character Gorgon, which is a Mark Miller and John Romita creation from their Wolverine run, show up. And he was also used in Secret Warriors, which is a Hickman book. So it's interesting to see him brought to the forefront here. They go to the like a political summit in Switzerland, the World Economic Forum, and they have a fancy dinner. It's cool seeing Apocalypse in a suit. I think it's up there with seeing Vision in a suit. And Hickman uses the text page in this issue for the dinner menu, which I think was, I guess, cutesy, but also dumb. But most of this issue is just tense political talking, and it's mostly Magneto doing the talking. And there's a very clever quote of Aldous Huxley's The Island. I think this is a better usage of literature than Tom King's Batman. And after that reference, one of the guys points out, hey, there aren't any famous mutant writers. And I feel like, especially like when mutants have kind of sort of been around so long in continuity, and there were so many of them like pre-decimation and everything, I feel like there has to be one of them. And there is, it's not on the level of like Aldous Huxley where you would consider it like high literature, but I can think of a famous mutant writer, and that's Quicksilver, who's a best-selling author, but actually not, because Marvel's stupid. So Hickman, if you can fix that sometime soon, that would be great. And then Cyclops and Gorgon the entire time are taking out attack teams that some of the politicians had sent. And then Magneto basically pulls his dick out, and then they walk out the room. That's essentially what happened in this issue, and I enjoyed it a lot.
It was great. I'm curious to ask you, do you think Hickman is doing right by Cyclops? I think Cyclops is being put over pretty strong, like he should be in this.
Yeah, more or less.
Especially when we get one of our details pages is breaking down the leadership of the team, and Scott is right there as top dog, which I like. But because he's my preferred X-Men leader, as our friend Matt says, Storm is better.
And that leads us to Marauders number 5. And in this issue, the Marauders, for a brief moment, are back on Krakoa. And so Kate finally gets the chance to learn the Krakoan language from Emma, because she can't get it automatically by walking through the gates. And it's interesting to see scenes where Kate and Emma are getting along.
It really is.
Because obviously, going way back, that's not expected. And then going through some of the modern seminal runs, mostly Astonishing X-Men, that's not really expected. And there's some comedy here. Emma jokes about she's scared of dying too, because she doesn't know what would happen with her plastic surgery. And that's in response to Kate not knowing what happens if she dies, because whether it's her powers or something, there's something wrong with the gates. So she's not sure if the kind of rebirth process would work the same for her. And she contemplates real quick how her life may have turned out different, essentially if she picked Emma over Charles, because of course she joined the Charles Xavier School and learned that Charles Xavier is a jerk, but Emma was going after her, and she could have been a Hellion, like Firestar. And then the Marauders, they go out to save Shinobi Shaw in Madripoor, and some power dampener dudes show up, but they ain't got shit on Storm. He pulls out a vibranium blade and stabs these dudes. I thought that was a pretty badass moment, and very perfect for Storm, who of course has a history with being depowered or excelling without using her powers. And then at the end of the issue, you have named villains show up. You have the Executioner, and then craziest of all, the fucking hate monger boards their ship. And I want to remind everyone that the hate monger's secret identity is Adolf Hitler, but not the Hitler which the Human Torch killed during World War II. This is like cloned Adolf Hitler. But still, Adolf Hitler has just attacked the Marauders. Tune in next issue.
I mean, I think it was nice to have X-Men and Marauders both come out the same week, because I think they are the two strongest books. I think X-Men gets better with every issue. I think we can we say that? Like, I'm going to say it. I'm what you're saying.
I like the issues that are more focused on kind of this, like, macro scale, like Krakoan politics and Charles and Magneto. Like, I think it was the second issue where it was like actually the first 2 issues, if I recall correctly, I wasn't so hot on, where it was like the Summers family get-togethers. Yeah. Even though I'm obviously a Cyclops fanboy.
You one was awesome. Yeah, the third issue was awesome with the grandmas attacking, and then this one was like kind of like a masterclass in tension, waiting to see what Magneto, Apocalypse, and Charles will do. While the Gorgon and Scott are just like taking out all of these things behind the scenes. It felt like almost like the framing sequence of one of the newer Mission Impossible movies to me, almost. The way they set things up, kind of reminiscent of Ghost Protocol as they're having the meeting, but all the crazy shit's happening outside the door. Marauders is still really good. I like to see. I felt like Storm was like kind of left to the wayside a little bit in this book, so it was nice to see her have a really big moment here, and I hope to see her used more because I want to see more of her because it doesn't feel like, yeah, it feels like she's been kind of shoved to the sidelines a little bit in this book, but still continues to be really good. And also nice to see Matteo Lolli back on art.
Yeah, even though we haven't really complained about any of the fill-in or
it hasn't been bad at all. It was just
artists.
Nice to see them back.
Yeah, but nice to see the lead. So that's Marauders, and that's our final book for the week. Thanks for watching this episode.
So picks of wait, picks.
My pick. I'm gonna go with X-Men. Actually,
Can't pick Criminal. It came out last week.
Ah, shit.
Actually, I'm gonna go X-Men. Thor's the runner-up.
X-Men.
Um,
Mine's reversed. Thor, then X-Men.
I'm probably going Daredevil.
All right, there you hear it.
There.
Thanks for watching this episode. Tune in next time, or at least watch this space. There may be some format changes, some switcheroos, so be on the lookout. Bye-bye.
See you.